Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where today's most exciting solopreneurs share their startup stories. They also deliver tangible strategies that they would implement personally if starting their business over today. Each episode is a startup masterclass. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Rising Tide Startups, and my guest today is Joe Valley. Joe, thanks for joining us on Rising Tide.
Good to be here, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Well, man, I appreciate you taking time, and I have jerked poor Joe around all day long, telling him that I can do it on time. No, I've got a delay. No, I can do it on time. No, I've got a delay. So his flexibility has been tested, and he has proven that he is up to the challenge today. So, man, I appreciate your flexibility. Could you tell us a little bit about Joe Valley?
Sure. I'm an entrepreneur, obviously. I've been self-employed since 1997. So going on, what is that, 24 years now. Got a bit of gray on the chin. First foray into entrepreneurship was starting a media buying agency. I used to work for a very I don't want to say large. It wasn't actually at the time. We did 100 million last year that I was there. A direct response marketing company up in Portland, Maine, which is the area that I grew up in. I said to myself, if I ever had $10,000 to my name, I would leave and start my own company. And I had owned a 2-family at the time, and the tenants in the back paid the rent in the front. And I ended up leaving the company. I resigned before I would have gotten fired, is the way I like to say it. I was promoted to my level of incompetence and needed to go off and do my own thing. I started a media buying agency, and within 12 months, Kevin, I was making 10 times what I made at my last job, which is just a brilliant, wonderful, lovely thing. Within 5 months after that, I launched my own product, and we did it on radio and then did a television infomercial. And then I did the next one, radio, and then a television infomercial. Television infomercials were a total flop. I did not succeed with those, but the radio just crushed it. The last one I took 100% online in 2005, and I grew it through the best of the worst, and then the worst of the economy. Came out the other side of it pretty tired and ready to move on. So I sold my last e-commerce brand in November of 2012, and have been on this new venture with Quiet Light, which is an online M&A firm, ever since then. So
did you intentionally skip over the subject of that infomercial? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it was like an exciting, hot sports brand, or it was maybe colon cleansing or something like that. So I'm a little
You've done your research.
Exactly what it was.
You've done your research. Yeah. So the first product that I did, that was on my own, and we did the television infomercial with, and my wife and I actually were the co-hosts of it. It was called Mega Firm, and it was actually a weight loss product. A lot of people like to make dirty jokes about what that product could have possibly been. But it was a weight loss program with a component to it. We had a great fitness guy, Jamie Brankus, who did 8-minute abs, 8-minute buns. Brilliant guy, still out there in the world doing great stuff. We did that ourselves, and it did okay, but we said some things in it, Kevin, that apparently were not up to stuff with the FTC. So we hired a really good attorney to review it after we produced it, and record really the wrong way of doing it. And then we edited it down, and then the results were, barely break even. So we just stuck with our radio campaign. The second infomercial, which was, yes, a colon cleansing product. Let me give you a little background, folks. Too much information here, but I was 29 years old living in Portland, Maine. There's more bars per capita than almost any other city in the country in Portland, Maine. It's a magical, wonderful place on the coast of Maine. And I was single, living the life, not eating well, drinking way too much. And at the company that I worked for, we were selling a colon cleansing product through direct response radio. And I had used it, and I just felt amazing. I was incredible. I'm like, God, there's no way I should feel this good. If I ever leave this company, I'm going to start my own. This is a great product. Feels great. And I left. It took me, 4 years to do it, but I did. The television infomercial was after the radio campaign. The radio campaign actually crushed it. We did great. And naturally, the next evolution is a TV infomercial. And I wasn't going to do that one myself. So I hired an ex-CNN host and a Doogie Howser of the medical field. And it was a man for the host, ex-CNN person, and a woman. And she was maybe she was like 30 years old. She looked like a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. And it was just not a good fit. She showed up and she didn't read the script. She didn't like Bob, who was the other host. He was a wonderful guy and they didn't get along. And I'm sitting there as the, quote unquote, executive producer going, I just lost $100,000.
Wow.
And that doesn't count the media spend. It was so bad. And that's, it was a pretty abysmal on the results of that. But it was a great radio campaign, helped a lot of people. We morphed it into an entire digestive wellness program. So we had liver cleanse, probiotics, digestive support, and digestive enzymes and everything, a complete multivitamin program geared towards digestive health. And I had a web developer tell me, look, you'll never run out of content, things to write about. And I didn't believe him, but I did. I did it. We wrote good quality content over the course of 5 years, all on digestive health, everything that your body does in regards to digestion, whether it's your colon or your liver, your gallbladder, whatever it might be. And Google rewarded us, and that's what I ended up selling.
The dreaded
the Penguin update. You've been listening. You've been stalking me. All right. Yeah. So. No, the Penguin update, that wasn't me though, Kevin. That was a company I bought.
Okay.
Right? So I sold Puristat. That was the name of the brand. It was under a company I owned, Abbott Industries. And it was a great business, hundreds of thousands of organic visitors every month, and nice recurring revenue stream to it. And I was bored and I sold it. I was working like 20 hours a week. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. It's stupid, right? And then I went out and bought a colossal, just abysmal business that had, it was growing like crazy. It was on auto insurance in the state of Texas. That was it. And my plan was to grow it to every different state. So I'd have 50 different URLs. And I think I closed on it on March 1st, 2012. And as I've said a few times on different podcasts, I had 42 amazing days. And then the Google Penguin update struck. And the 6 keywords that it was ranking for that were on page 1 fell immediately to page 2, and then 3, and then 4, then 5. And within about a year, I lost about $280,000.
Wow.
So it was,
if you're on page 3, you might as well be on page 1,000, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Page 3 is
the attention.
When was the last time you went
to
page 3?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm thinking if you're on page 2, you're almost in oblivion. So
you are.
It's amazing. But so I want to get to what you're doing now and have been for the last few years, but it seems like every great endeavor is kind of born out of almost necessity, or born out of lessons learned, or you're scratching your own itch. So kind of walk us through that transition. So is it you said about 2012 that you started Quiet Light, or you became involved with Quiet Light?
Yeah, I became involved in Quiet Light, right? So Quiet Light was my brokerage firm back when I sold Puristat in the fall of 2010. And Jason Yelowitz, who's still with the team, was my advisor at the time. I enjoyed the process so much that I immediately started talking with him and Mark, who is the original founder of the company, about joining the team. I took about a year off. I bought that other site. I waited, it was 4 months later, and I bought that other site. And I went back to doing some media buying stuff and realized it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I've been talking to Mark and Jason all along. And I joined the company in April of 2012, and very quickly became, the one that was producing 70% of the revenue. I just worked all the time. I loved it. And it was really something I was born to do, because all I focused on was how many people can I help, right? And I think a lot more people need to think this way in business.
Right.
Not how much money can I make, but how many people can I help? What kind of a difference can I make in their lives? And then when you do that, and they tell you about it, it fills your cup. emotionally and whatnot. And it also fills your bank account. I ended up closing 23 transactions in the calendar year 2013, which is just insane. There's no way to do it today. The deal sizes are much larger. Mark and I became business partners not too long after. And now we've got a team of 15 advisors. They're all entrepreneurs, first and foremost. Company is Quiet Light Brokerage. And everybody on the team that is an advisor has built, bought, or sold their own online business and then joined the team as an advisor, just like myself. And then I've taken all of that experience. I've personally closed about 100 million in total transactions, and through the team touched another $500 million in total transactions. And these are all online exits. I've had 5,000 conversations one-on-one with entrepreneurs over the years.
Wow.
And that's a conservative. I did the math and it feels more like 8.
Yeah.
And there's just no way that I could keep up the pace of having that many conversations and helping them with understanding the value of what they have and helping them reverse engineer a path to their goals. So I had to, I wanted to, I had a passion to do it. And I had to write the EXITpreneur's Playbook. It's a book that I feel like it needed to be written and can reach more people than I can reach one-on-one conversations and help more people.
So you joined Quiet Light as kind of a broker, or kind of a sales rep, and then
I was a broker.
And then, so what has transitioned since that time, and how has your role morphed?
Well, I think, in that first calendar year, let's call it the first full calendar year of 2013, we might have done a total of 15 million in total transactions. And there were me, Mark, Amanda, and Jason at the time. This calendar year, 2021, we will probably do 250 million in total closed transactions. Back then, the average deal size might have been $120,000, $125,000. Right now, we're at about 1.8 on average. So the industry has grown up, right?
For sure.
It's not just us. It's the industry. The understanding that an online business really does have value. It is truly a business, that whether it's a WooCommerce site, a Shopify site, or a FBA seller, or a combination, all of those, or a content site or a SaaS business, they all have value. It's trying to figure out what the correct value is, and making sure that the owners understand what brings value, what buyers want, and what they fear, and making sure that you focus on that, a little bit on that fear stuff, so that your business value doesn't get diminished when you go to sell.
Right. So if you and I were jumping on an elevator, we're going up 8 to 10 floors, you got about 30 to 45 seconds or whatever to kind of give me the pitch of Quiet Light. What would you tell me?
Well, boy, this is the thing, we don't pitch, we help first and foremost.
Right.
So we've been there, we've done it. We've all built, bought, and sold their own online businesses. And now we're just here to help others understand that process and get them through the exit, as smoothly as possible, with as much value as possible to both them and the buyer. Right? It has to be a win-win. And when that happens, Quiet Light wins as well. Our engagement letters are short. We don't charge a nickel before the transaction closes. If we don't succeed, we don't earn money. We help first and foremost. We give advice. We give people paths to go on, hoping that they'll choose us, allowing them to choose us, not roping them into signing an engagement letter. That's why I chose Quiet Light to begin with, because Mark helped me. He guided me, gave me advice, told me to go away, come back in 6 months, which is what I did. It was in my best interest. So we'll always put people's best interests first. And in the long run, that's going to help everybody.
So was their pathway to starting Quiet Light similar to yours, where they had either been very successful in exit, or they had struggled to an exit, and they saw that there were gaps in the market and they could fill them?
Yeah, Mark founded the company in 2007, and he had a business that he wanted to sell, and he did end up having a broker, and the broker was a quasi brick and mortar broker, and kind of dabbled in the online space. But look, this is 2007.
Yeah, early days.
Yeah, early days, and he thought he could do a better job than that broker, and so he did. Right, he started brokering. And he tried the traditional broker model, bringing on salespeople to be brokers, and it failed epically, right? Because there's so many nuances to an online business that you can't just, be a salesperson and pitch and sell. You really need to understand all of those nuances and be there and do it. And so in 2010, early 2010, Mark had sold Jason Yelowitz a business, and Jason enjoyed the process, ended up selling another business through Quiet Light, and then Pest to join the team and say, listen, you're doing it wrong. You don't need salespeople. You need entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs. And Mark finally gave in and said, fine, here's the listing for you. And he gave him the worst possible listing he could think of. And Jason sold it, helped the buyer, helped the seller, made the transaction work. And that's really what started our model, just having entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs. So that was it.
Is this mostly inbound? I mean, are you, it doesn't sound like that there's any high pressure anywhere in this process. So is this mostly, companies reaching out or individuals reaching out to you that said, hey, I hear you do this. I'm thinking about exiting my company,
Exactly.
selling my company. So where do we go here from here?
I was just looking at our deal dashboard. Year to date, 53% of our transactions are from referrals. That's huge. Considering that is total number that I just told you about.
Yeah.
It's people that have connected with us or worked with us in one way, shape, or form, and they're referring their friends and associates and colleagues and mastermind groups to us. We also have our own podcast, the Quiet Light Podcast. We have a sizable email list. We've been doing this for a long time.
It's a great podcast, events. By the way.
Thank you very much. We attend lots of events now that they're starting to open back up. It's going to be a busy fall for us. And we just love to have conversations, right? The more conversations that we can have, the more people we can connect with and help and guide, and the more that's going to grow our business by helping them.
Now, what type of events would attract Quiet Light? Are these e-commerce events or these?
Yeah.
What type of events?
Yeah. So they're events for online entrepreneurs, whether it's FinCon, which is a financial oriented conference, or Content Marketing World, or White Label Expo, or the Prosper Show, which is happening in the month of July, which is 100% Amazon oriented. Those are all much bigger events and shows that lots of people go to, and there's lots of booths, and those are great. But our favorite is mastermind events. So, e-commerce fuel or Blue Ribbon Mastermind or Brand Accelerator Live, where you might be talking about 150 to 250 people max.
Yeah.
And we have the same advisors go to them year after year. So when you go, you're just going to hang out with old friends, right? You become friends with them, you have conversations, you enjoy their company. You're not there necessarily representing Quiet Light. You're there as a sponsor of the event, yes, but we're spending time with friends and answering any questions and guiding them and instilling confidence in them. And whether they use us or not, we're sharing advice and tidbits and tips.
And you ever get stage time at events like this that talks about, I mean, if I was putting the event on, I would love to have you on the stage, talk about, how you can exit, how you can buy, the buying and selling of these.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. Yes and no. Some events where they have multiple brokers that are there, they don't want to have a broker up on stage because it's unfair to the others.
Yeah.
And then there's the broker stigma, right? Oh, they're a broker. They're just going to get up there and pitch their services and sell. That's why I wrote the book. Right. Because it's not who we are. It's not what we do. So I wrote the EXITpreneur's Playbook to separate myself from that broker label, that broker status, to, an author that has published a best-selling book that is out there helping entrepreneurs understand the value of what is likely their greatest asset, and that is their business, trying to take all of the mystery out of, valuations and deal structures and letters of intent and working with aggregators. That is the big push these days, and things of that nature.
So you mentioned a minute ago the kind of the biggest source of is either inbound or referrals, as far as people contacting you and you making those connections and developing those relationships. So tell me, what's the sell side? What's the marketplace that I mean, do you have your own marketplace? Do you list this on online?
Anyone that is out there looking for an online business to buy, they have got to know who we are. They would find us, right? If you go, how do I buy an online business? You will find us. You're either if you're not part of our list already, if you're not listening to the podcast, if you don't know us through events or different mastermind groups, but it's easy enough to find us online. And so, yes, we have, email list that's been developed over the last 14 years. And that list gets our email updates when we launch new listings, which is almost, one a day now. And so they'll get that. So they're getting listing alert emails with what's coming up. But they're also hunting. The most aggressive buyers are making sure that they're looking every day, making sure that they're touching base with, certain advisors every day, chatting with them, saying, what's coming up? What do you got going on? Is it a good fit? I love the pet space. I want to buy a pet business. Do you have anything in that category? But right now, Kevin, we don't have a shortage of buyers. We have a shortage of sellers. We've had an average, and this is an exceptional year because of the FBA business space and what's happening with the aggregators, which are essentially private equity firms buying them up. We've had an average of 4.5 offers on every listing year to date.
And like, how long would they be live before you would say we would have these 4 offers?
I can give you the exact numbers. Let me see if this is year to date. This is year to date. So deals from beginning to end, once they go live to close, 91 days. From launch to LOI, the average is 49 days. And keep in mind, this is taking into account deals that are $1 million and deals that are $25 million. So that $25 million one is going to take 6 months, probably quite a bit longer. Yep. And the average deal size at 1.8 is going to close within 90 days from listing to close transaction where there's money in the bank.
So it's almost like the perfect storm. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of money in the market. The interest rates are low. Money's available, to borrow. So is this the best time in the world to sell your business?
No, the best time in the world to sell your business is when it's right for you, right? You got to be emotionally prepared. You got to be
great point.
Trained for it, right? You don't want to just wake up one day and sell your business, because then it's not going to be as valuable as it could be. You want to get some training. You want to understand it. And I use the word training because I hate the 2 words exit planning, right? It just makes your eyes bleed. So you want to get some training. You want to learn, you want to understand the nuances, what brings value, again, what plummets value, what is an add back? How is a online business even valued in the sub $25 million range, right? It's a multiple of sellers' discretionary earnings. It's net income plus add backs. Okay. What's an add back? Well, there's 18 different levels of add back. Okay. It's math and it's logic, but there's so much nuance to it. And, I'm trying to help online entrepreneurs avoid the ignorance discount. That's something that they give to the buyer when they don't do a proper valuation of their own company. They don't know a proper add back schedule. They're giving that buyer instant equity because they said, I can do that, right? We have an entrepreneurial affliction. We think we can do everything, right? And that helps us get to the point of being a successful entrepreneur, but we have to understand what we're not good at. Somebody's told me the other day, I was going to ask me anything for an event called EXITcon. And one of the other advisors on the panel that's from a European company said, look, if you look at a publicly traded company, or even just a Fortune 500 company, or a company that's doing 100 million in revenue, the CEO of that company, when he wants to sell his business, he's not going to say, I got this. I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to save the broker fee. He's not going to do that because he's a pretty smart guy. He understands what he's good at and knows that this is, a big risk, and he's not taking that risk. A lot of people in the sub 25 million space, we're entrepreneurs. We think we can do everything. It's different from $100 million CEO, where they probably graduated from a very good master's program at Yale or Harvard or something like that, and they were hired into that role. We're bootstrap startup entrepreneurs. We can do anything, but we need to make sure that we don't promote ourselves to our own level of incompetence, either within the business to the point where we don't enjoy it and we have lots of staff that we don't enjoy managing, or to the point where we say, I got this, and we don't do a proper add back schedule and do the simplest thing, which is calculating sellers' discretionary earnings properly.
I mean, that is such a great way to describe, just like the different levels of capabilities and the different levels of experience and even perspective. But So as you were talking, I'm thinking, go back to the thing you've mentioned 2 or 3 times in the podcast about, we're actually in the business of helping people.
Yeah.
We truly, I mean, it's not just a trite saying, a fun little quick, quippy little saying. I mean, it really is who we are. It's kind of our DNA. But
Yeah.
I think of the, like, if you're talking about that, like the seller's journey, that they're going to go on. I mean, do you encounter people that are really 12 months early? I mean, you said you mentioned you were going to sell your business. You said come back in 6 months, initially, but so are you working with people through that entire process? Because I would say, like, let's say I'm hypothetically coming to you and saying, hey, I want you to help me sell this. And you take a look and you kind of do a deep dive and do some due diligence, into the books and the processes and everything around what I do. And I would say, based on your experience and the things you've seen, you could identify a number of things that I could do in the next 6 to 12 months that would, some X multiple what I'm currently doing.
Everybody in the team can do that. Absolutely.
But that's, I mean, that takes time. So, I mean, would you work with somebody for 12 months, or is it like, we're going to tell you what to do, we'll see you in 6 months type thing? What's kind of the average
You're stuck with us.
process?
We're stuck with you. And occasionally we're going to be working with somebody, and at the end of the day, they choose to go somewhere else, even though we've been helping them for 6 to 12 months, whatever the case might be. And,
I doubt that happens very often.
Occasionally, right? You win some, you lose some. That's the old saying. But, so the first thing I do, you say, you want to sell your business. I'd say, okay, how much do you want to sell it for? And you might say, well, I want a 4-time multiple. Like, okay, you've been talking to too many people around the water cooler. You don't put multiples in the bank account, Kevin. How much do you want to sell your business for in dollars?
Give me a number. That's
right. Well, I was hoping you'd tell me how much it's worth. I'm like, okay, I can do that, but let's reverse engineer a path to your goal. How much do you want to sell your 10 million? Great. Okay. So how much are you doing in revenue now? We can do some of this on a call, all ballpark
15,000.
15,000, right? So if you're doing $1 million in revenue now, I can ballpark, you're probably, depending upon the type of business, let's just say it's a physical products business, you might be doing 15% in discretionary earnings. So you're 150,000, 200,000 maybe. So let's go with an even number, 200,000. That might be worth $600,000 to $800,000. It's not worth 10 million. So now you know what your goal is, and you know where you are, or you will know where you are, because that's ballpark. Next thing is, let's do that deep dive into the P&Ls. Let's import it. Let's look at the strengths and weaknesses. We're going to do an ad back schedule. I'm going to educate you. I got to train you. I'm training you to understand what, is bringing value, what the ad backs are, decisions that you're going to make, and how it's going to affect the value of your business. So we're going to firm up that discretionary earnings number and firm up the value of your business so you can see how close or how far you are from it. So let's just say that you were hoping to sell it for 1.5 million. And now you're at 800,000, but you're growing 50% year over year. It's not like it's going to take forever, right? It's going to take 18 months because you're growing 50% year over year, right? So we go through that kind of analysis, and then just talk about the process and answer any and all questions that we can, and then just be here for you. Get a quarterly update call, things of that nature. Meet you at a mastermind. If I'm in Austin, you're in Austin, we'll get together, that type of thing. So it's a crazy. I've got a mentor that, Walter, Uncle Walter. When I explained the business model to him, he said, Joe, and this is as I was becoming a partner. Mark and I were becoming partners. He's like, Joe, I don't know. It just sounds like you're giving everything away for free and hoping that they hire you. I'm like, yes, that's exactly it, Walter. And it works, right? Because we're helping. And the same thing goes for the entrepreneur that's out there running a business, whether it is a cleaning supply business or a cleaning houses, air conditioning business, or an online business selling grilling aprons. If you think about building a great business for yourself, so there's a great customer interaction, and a great business for the next buyer, you're going to get a great price for it. When all you do is build a business on a house of cards because you're trying to take every nickel and dime out of it and screw the customer, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that, how few people actually think about you're actually building this for the next buyer. You're not just building it for you. And if you do plan on,
everybody's going to exit their business someday, whether it's through death, divorce, passing it on to your children, or losing it to competition. You want to control your own destiny. And again, that's why you want to get trained for this. It's not it can be all consuming, and the team can only talk to so many people. And again, that's the point of writing it all down, right? This is the EXITpreneur's Playbook is the first book that I know of. I've done the research. I've looked. It's the first book that's specific to the online M&A space. There's nothing else out there like it. And it again, is supposed to take all the mystery out of it and help those that are trying to help themselves, that might be saying, I got this, and are going to go ahead and sell on their own. At the very least, look at chapter 11 on add backs to make sure you're calculating discretionary earnings. Make sure that you're doing an add back for your cash back money that you're putting over into your personal account. It's still an owner benefit.
Yeah.
It's an owner benefit, and it should be added back.
Right.
Yeah.
So you talked about the process. You talked about kind of, your philosophy, and, you've even kind of, I think you've identified almost your target market. So, I mean, you're normally somewhere between $1 million and 25 million. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
I mean,
At one point it used to be,
client?
it used to be 250 and up. But it seems to be creeping up a little bit, so I'd call it 500,000 to 25 million. But if you look at the site, we actually have 5 listings under 500,000 right now. We've got something, I think there's one for 50,000 all the way up to 22 or 23 million.
So how many are live at any given time on the average?
Good question. We have 34 under LOI right now and 23 live. So,
okay.
We've got, it's a lot. We've launched about 100 listings so far this year, and we're only halfway through the year.
Is there a little psychology with, like if somebody comes to your site and is looking to buy a business or whatever, and they may look at it, and you've got 50, come back 6 months, you've got 4. I mean, that could be because you guys are just rock stars in helping people sell businesses, or it could be indicative of, the market has shifted. So what is the psychology with kind of the marketplace?
Well, first of all, we would never and have never and will never manipulate total listings to mess with people's psychology so they'll act more quickly. Right?
No, I don't mean you're manipulating that. I'm saying that, that's the reality of what the marketplace is. So
it is. It's getting very frustrating for buyers in general to find a business because there's so much competition, right? It's just getting more and more difficult. And Quiet Light and our team, we're entrepreneurs. We've got a business just like everybody else that's out there running a business. And you have to make a decision. How big do you want to get? How quickly are you going to grow? We have to do the same thing.
Right.
Say, all right, are we going to open the sails wide and let this, carry us across the sea? And if we do that, how much growth do we have to have team-wise? And we have to be very careful to make sure that we maintain the level of service and brand and reputation of Quiet Light, because it's taken us 14 years to build it up. We don't want to, destroy it in 12 months because we're grabbing for money. We historically in the last five years, we probably brought on 2 new advisors a year. I think in the last 12 months, it's been 4. So we've, yes, it was 2 in 2020 and 2 in 2021, but we'll wind up with a couple more advisors before the end of the year. But again, they've got to be rock star entrepreneurs first and foremost.
Right.
And the headwinds are there. We just have to make sure that we're managing the brand and reputation, servicing, and not promoting ourselves beyond our own level of incompetence, right? And that might be in terms of HR and managing staff and things of that nature. Everybody has to grow up at some point, and Mark and I are doing the same thing. We're going, okay, we're not a small company anymore. We're going to do $250 million in closed transactions. Yeah. Let's make sure we get the proper support staff so that the advisors can have more conversations and help more people. That's what. And then there's building tech behind that. It's a wonderful process. That's me being sarcastic, by the way.
So how much liability exposure is there for brokers that are for business brokers? Like, I mean, I know you would do a tremendous amount of due diligence, and really drill down and really have a good understanding of the businesses you're trying to help sell.
Yeah.
But like, I buy hate to use the phrase a pig in a poke, I buy a $1 million company and it's worth, 75,000. I'm angry at somebody. And, is there some exposure that you would have as the broker, that would, I guess, put your, not just reputation, but financially put you on the line?
The answer is should be no, right? We've got attorneys that draft engagement letters and non-disclosure agreements and contracts that, build layers and protect us. But that doesn't mean that, that person that's angry at everybody and they're going to see what sticks would attempt something. We've been very fortunate in the 14 years that we've been doing this. There's been one lawsuit, one situation like that. And it was an unfortunate situation, and it was not us. It was something else that happened. We're very, very much, putting the seller through the ringer, through our process, but more so by building a relationship with them and getting to know them and trusting them. And we're not doing third-party report verifications and things of that nature. That's not our role. But we're getting direct exports and analyzing numbers and looking at analytics and reports and things of that nature. But we're not doing a full deep dive into due diligence, verify every number and every report and whatnot. We strongly encourage every buyer to hire a third-party due diligence firm if it's the first time they've ever purchased something. And if it's the first time they've ever purchased something and they go to buy another one, they know through experience that they're going to hire that same firm.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the best ones out there that specializes in due diligence for online businesses is a company called Centurica, Cunturica. They also have a marketplace where they actually aggregate all the listings from every broker in the online world. And you can see all of them on their marketplace, and you can narrow down your search to specific niches or sizes or SBA approval and things of that nature. So Centurica.com and MarketWatch. And,
I was going to ask you if there was an MLS service, I guess the equivalent of MLS, service for online businesses.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. It used to be Biz by Sell, but, everybody would need to post their own listings in Biz by Sell. And then people really stopped looking at Biz by Sell for online businesses. We just didn't, our buyers weren't there, right? The local brick and mortar business person is there, but the online world is not. So Chris at Centurica has done that with MarketWatch, and us, we as an advisor, we don't need to do a thing. He just pulls it all in without us lifting a finger, which is great. So when I'm having conversations with buyers, which is probably 30% of the conversations we have, and they're on the hunt. I had one this morning with a couple of guys that run an agency in the online world, and they want to buy a business to bring into the agency and grow it and use that as their example to try new things and test new things, but also to flip it in 3 or 4 years and earn some money. And they're like, looking for something that might be a little smaller than our average transaction size. And I've known these guys for a while. I'm like, you've got to go to Centurica. Go to Centurica's MarketWatch, and you could check all these boxes, and then all of these listings will show up in your inbox. But then you've got to do the work. You've actually got to look at those listings. You've got to, it's almost a full-time job. But before you do any of that, you got to get your ducks in a row financially so that you're prepared to buy that business when it shows up. Yeah. And don't dream of buying a business that checks every single box on your wish list. Not going to happen. But if it checks 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, it's pretty good. And you can work on fixing those other things. But you got to be prepared to pull the trigger. No, I'm not talking about in an hour after the listing comes up. You still go through the process. You still analyzing the numbers, have a conversation with the seller, make an offer, and then you've got due diligence after that. Once you're under letter of intent, you've got a, generally a 2 or 3 week period where you're doing a deep dive into the financials and the analytics and things of that nature. And that's what Centurica does. They help with that aspect of it.
And are you actually representing the seller in the transaction? Okay.
Yeah, we only represent sell side.
But you are handling kind of the the intermediary communication between the two, or are you just connecting them together?
100% intermediary. We're white glove. We're there the entire way.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a listing marketplace. There are listing
Right.
marketplaces that are out there. That's not what we are or what we do. The team is there with that seller from point A, which is that first conversation, all the way through to closing and training and transition and things afterwards if needed.
But you said you're also having buyers contact you as well. They're looking for certain types of businesses. Are you helping them find that as well? Are you proactively looking on their behalf as well?
No, we're not going out and going, hey, Mr. Pet product seller, I've got a buyer that would like to buy your pet product business. It's not a service that we provide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've thought about it. There's been a lot of questions about that and whatnot, but the reality is that as a buyer, you got to do the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even the guys, people that are well-known in the industry, for one thing, they may want to have a conversation with a broker, whoever it might be, an advisor, and say, this is what I want. Bring it to me, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You've got to get your ducks in a row, use Centrica's Market Watch, and then get to work and look at as many listings as possible.
Yep.
Because you're better off looking at listings from all the different brokerage firms than just narrowing in on Quiet Light Brokerage listings. Because we're only going to have so many, right? And we're getting 4.5 offers on every one that we have. So you might as well open up your search and dig in. You've got to dig in. But before you have your financial ducks in a row, you really shouldn't bother.
I mean, you're already at like almost 25% chance of winning the bid anyway. So I mean, it's exponentially getting worse.
Right. So one of the things that I'm trying to educate people on, and again, I can't do is one-on-one conversations. My goal with the book is to reach 1 million entrepreneurs over the next 10 years. So it's 1 million books a year. No, it's 100,000 books a year. Is educating them so that they're not afraid to make a fair or generous offer on a business, because they're so well trained that they can look at your business that you have listed, Kevin, on your own. You decided to say, I got this, and you listed it on your own, and you didn't do accrual accounting. Your business is growing like crazy, but you're presenting a cash P&L to me, and you've got lots of inventory. Well, that's depressing your discretionary earnings. I'd love to buy that business from you, because I'm going to get instant equity because of your ignorance discount that you're giving me. So, the 25% shot of buying a business, you can look at it where a lot of people would just say, this is what I'm looking for. I don't want to pay more than I want, utility patent, design patent. I want it to be 5 years old. I want, 17 SKUs with equal income from each of them. And I want to be on, Shopify and Amazon UK, Amazon Canada, Amazon Germany. And I don't want to pay more than a 2.5 multiple. Okay. Ain't going to happen.
I have ropes the unicorn in the parking lot.
It's not going to happen. So you got to get realistic. Look at what things are listed for out there. Get educated, get training, and get comfortable with the fact that you may pay a higher multiple. You may pay at asking or even a higher multiple, but you may be smart enough because you're so well trained that there's instant equity. So at the end of the day, once you own that business and you do a proper add back schedule, you're actually gaining $40,000 in discretionary earnings and $120,000 in value. So, I hate it. I don't want everything to be all about the multiples, right? So the multiple is, what's the multiple of the business? It's discretionary earnings times 3, discretionary earnings times 4, discretionary earnings times 2. Those are multiples, 2, 3, 4. And too many buyers are focused on that as opposed to, Matt Howitt. Matt's bought 5 businesses from Quiet Light. He owns a company down in Austin called Profound Commerce. And he is perfectly comfortable paying more for the business because he'll just do a short pro forma looking out 3 months. Okay, so I'm competing against 5 buyers. It's $1 million. What's it going to look like 3 months out? If I pay 1.1, what's my multiple if I look out 3 months? Oh, it's not a 3.5. It's actually a 3.1. All I have to do is let 90 days pass and the multiple goes down in my business. So he's been very successful at winning, even though sometimes, Kevin, he's not paying the most in cash. It's not always whoever pays the most cash. There's a little secret. You actually have to be likable in order to win the deal as well.
Yep.
Because people that are selling want to feel confident they're going to get through due diligence and all the way through to closing and still like you at the end of the day, because they're going to have a relationship with you in training and transition. So Matt does that very, very well.
So, man, I've kept you far longer than I promised when we started this, but I could continue to ask you questions literally all day long, and I know you could answer them well into the evening. But let's kind of wrap up today. Just talk about the book, who it's written for, what are kind of the biggest helps that would be most applicable. I mean, is it on the buy side, the sell side, both sides? Just let's wrap it up with the book.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I wrote it. It's called the EXITpreneur's Playbook. I wrote it because I felt it had to be written because there's so much misinformation out there about selling an online business. So I actually wrote it for sellers so that they'd understand the valuation process, the math behind it, the nuances, the 4 pillars of value, what buyers want, what they fear, what a letter of intent is, what points need to be in it, asset purchase agreements, deal structures. There's like 7 deal structures. And then when you add cash to each one of those is 14. It just takes the seller through the entire process in a book at their own pace on their nightstand or whenever they want to grab a whiskey or beer or their ginger ale or drink of choice. So I did write it for the sellers, but oddly enough, I've gotten a lot of feedback from buyers and some reviews. If you take a look at Amazon, some of the reviews, that it's almost like a secret guide for the buyers when they're out there buying. It really helps them understand how these businesses are valued and helps them take a look at what is underinflated and overinflated in terms of the P&L and the overall value of the business. I don't care if I ever make a nickel off the book. I really don't. I'd give it away for free, but then it would diminish the value of it. It's not expensive. It's a book, right? Just like I told Uncle Walter, I'm giving it away. It's all there. The goal is truly to help as many people as possible understand the value of the greatest asset. And I hope I did a great job with it. It's very conversational. There's some kind of personal stories in there, some of my own personal successes and my own epic failures. There's definitely some stories in there about people that did an incredible job and how they did it. And those that made some pretty big mistakes and their epic failures as well. And I definitely use first names only and change the names on the epic failures. Not my own though, of course.
And this is available on Amazon and other marketplaces.
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can just search for EXITpreneur, or you can go to my site, which is exitpreneur.io.
Well, Joe, I am very grateful you taking the time today. Is there anything you just want to a golden nugget to wrap us up with today, and maybe the best place to find you online?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can just search my name. You'll find me on LinkedIn. Go to quietlight.com or exitpreneur.io. Just do the right thing. Be a good human. That's the golden nugget. It's not complicated, right? Just be a good person, build a good business, and think about the next person that's going to buy it from you. And I promise you will get more value for it than if you try to cheat, lie, and steal.
Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure having the chat today. And once again, I thank you for your flexibility today and just sharing just so much value in such a short period of time, and really exemplifying what we try to do here at Rising Tide. And that's really helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Joe, have a great evening. Thank you again.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kevin.
Another episode in the books. We hope you heard some great takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on iTunes and YouTube. As always, thanks for listening to Rising Tide.